Okay, hear me out.
Who are you, Gabriel?
Today we have Malignant. There's a lot to unpack, but at the same time, there isn't. I'll keep things pretty concise. I don't normally watch these types of movies. Not to say I don't watch horror movies, but James Wan has a certain style. And not to say that I think The Conjuring or Insidious or Annabelle are bad movies per se. I just personally feel that they're fairly overrated. I will say, Insidious, the first one, just the first one, definitely did make an impression upon me in my blossoming years as a young adult. And I did not enjoy The Conjuring. Like I said, all those movies, The Nun, all this in the Conjuring verse, I don't think they're necessarily like terrible films, but I don't go out of my way to watch them. It's like Saw, you know? Cool, new Saw, I don't care. So this comes out, Malignant. Not another Annabelle, not another Conjuring, not another any of that. Just a movie directed by James Wan, who has his own special brand and style of horror. First of all, I recommend going into this blind because I never saw a trailer for it. I saw little clips online here and there to kind of sell it. It was marketed toward me still because, again, my social media pages know that I enjoy horror, but it was I never knew what it was about going into it. All I saw was Malignant, now playing, James Wan. You're not going to know anybody in this movie, but reviews weren't terrible. And that gave me pause. I was like, wait a second, normally these don't do too well, but this was sitting at like, I don't know if it still is, but it was sitting somewhere north of 70%, which even for Rotten Tomatoes standards, that's still above average. That's not terrible. So I was intrigued. And I've got Regal Unlimited, so I was like, well, fuck it. It's a free movie. Like, let's check it out. Malignant is not a good movie. However, it is worth watching purely for the third act, in my opinion. Let's start from the top, shall we? Directed by James Wan. This fella right here. I like him. He's a good guy. He's creative, I'll give him that. And he knows his way around a film. If you were to know this name from anywhere, he's director of like Saw, and yeah, like responsible for a lot of either directing or producing in the Conjuring verse. If you know any of those movies, they're typically the big blockbuster, horror, jump scare driven, paranormal leaning films, essentially. And this film's no exception. There's definitely a paranormal element to it, but I'm going to go at all costs, I'm not going to spoil this film. That's the one thing. When I reviewed The Lodge back in the day, I was so mad I didn't give a shit. But this movie, it doesn't deserve to be spoiled. It deserves to be watched. You're not going to know any of the names in it, and neither did I. Not to gloss over the cast, but I'm going to gloss over the cast. The only name you really need to know to give any credit to in this film is Annabelle Wallis. She has been in stuff, but I didn't realize until in this movie she was unrecognizable to me. But she's been in shows. She's just not a household name, you know, so it's just kind of weird. To her credit, because the acting in this film is, oh God, how do I put this? Like, it's just kind of flat. Like, they're trying, but by golly, they're trying. There's some little hints here and there of some decent emotion, and like, I can get behind it, but she's definitely the standout. She tries her damnedest, and I think she does fare pretty well. I want to give her credit where credit's due. She wasn't terrible. Her performance in this film was probably the strongest out of all the cast and ensemble. A lot of the lines that were delivered by other characters, including other protagonists, not so much, but again, we're not here for them, necessarily. Like I said, that's my main statement about this film. It's not a good movie, but it is worth it simply for the third act, and that's all I'm going to leave that at. Shit gets kind of wild, and God, this film almost redeems itself. Like, so close. Because I can walk out of this film saying, man, that's not going to win any Oscars, but I can't say that I didn't enjoy myself, because damn it, I did. I enjoyed myself by the end of this film. This has to be one of, I don't want to use the word kooky, but this has to be one of the most creative like horror plots I've seen in a minute. Creative in the sense that it's just like, who would think of this? Because she gets pretty weird, and trust me, you're looking at a guy. I've seen weird. I'm not saying they reinvented the wheel here. I've seen Basket Case. I've seen Society. I've seen fucking Antichrist. I've seen, God, I'm not gonna go down the list here, but I've seen some crazy. I've seen Event Horizon, one of my favorites, Event Horizon. I've seen some crazy shit when it comes to horror and stuff that's not necessarily sticking to the plane of what we know to be like basic existence, but this definitely took me for a bit of a ride and surprised me. And yet there's still wasted potential. Take a film like Babadook, for example. In that film, you have your plot, and you have the two ways that most audiences will interpret the film. But even beyond that, throughout the film, you don't just have what the main plot is, but brilliant use of shadows and light and dark and tension. And when there are jump scares, they aren't like the big, booming ones. They're ones that have a bit more subtlety to them, or maybe visually or anything. My point is, this film had a lot of opportunity to maximize the creep factor, and it kind of bubbles to the surface here and there. There's some creepy scenes, and and there was stuff where I'm like, man, I would have done this, I would have done that. You could have played this scene completely differently, and I felt like there was a lot of wasted potential to actually make this film feel frightening. There's some like creepy moments. There's some moments where you just know there's a build-up for an eventual jump scare, but aside from that, man, it wasted potential. Again, the ideas in this film are creative, and the main plot device, the main plot of this film, like from A to B, is creative. I can't deny that, but execution is what suffers and what makes it feel less creative. And that's it's unfortunate. It doesn't happen a lot. Well, it happened fairly frequently throughout the film, but unless I'm mistaken, there was a good amount of practical effects in here. And you know me, your boy loves a practical effect. Granted, there's definitely some CGI that you have to have for certain scenes just to like make the visuals work, or things human beings can't do. But I mean, it seems they did try to have practical effects when they could, and for that they get a little bit of my respect there. It's certainly a stylistic film. The first 5 minutes tell you that it's a stylistic film. I think James Wan has gotten more and more comfortable behind the camera. He definitely has a certain style. This definitely didn't feel like a typical film as I was watching it. Not a bad thing, just noticeable. A lot of directors have their trademarks. What's crazy is, and it's kind of part of the reason I wore this, aside from it being horror, this is kind of like a movie that wishes it could be as bonkers as Evil Dead or Evil Dead 2 and still work. Because Evil Dead's one of my favorite like horror films. Even that, it's like dark comedy horror. Or like a black comedy, I guess you would call it. I don't know. You can consider it a lot of things. But Evil Dead, for me, Evil Dead 2, works on every single premise it tries to execute. And this film kind of has the same spirit behind it. So for that, I can't hold that against it. Like they're trying, but they're also trying to do it with like a modern age and a modern audience, and it doesn't translate quite as well, I don't think. Probably my biggest complaint about the film, aside from the performances throughout that kind of bring it down a little bit, the music in the film and the music stings, like whenever it's like big character reveal and it's like all the music in this film was way out of place, like laughably so. Like, it felt like I was watching, like, All My Children, and it's like, but your brother's cousin's twin sister is actually my lover. And then the music cue kicks on, and you're like, whoa, that sounds weird. That was throughout a lot of this film. I know what they were trying to go for, but it really didn't work for me. Maybe it's just me, but God, the music, the soundtrack was not like 85% of the soundtrack did not belong in this film, or at the very least did not belong paired with the scenes they were trying to pair it with. Honestly, that's all I'm going to say about it. That's all I want to say about it. It's hard for me to put this into words, but Malignant is not worth it in theaters, in my opinion. However, rent it. Like, just rent it or stream it as soon as you get a chance. Now, if you have Regal Unlimited like me, or you don't mind wasting money, sure, go see it with a friend or two, or like a date for some laughs and whatnot. Because there are pros to this film, and there are quite a few cons. And I think the cons the cons do outweigh the pros, but some of the pros are so strong. Really, I'm really only giving this film all the credit because of how creative it is in its premise and how wild the third act gets. For that reason, I would say I would give Malignant a... God, I was debating this even right before I recorded it. A low 3 out of 5. It is, as a film period, it's below average. But I can't give it low. In my heart, I can't give it lower because it does have qualities that are technically redemptive in my eyes. Look, you gotta watch it. I will say this: if you don't like horror, don't watch it. I mean, if you don't mind horror, but just are really curious as to how crazy this shit can get, watch it. Because at the very least, it's like an hour and a half, close to 2 hours, maybe like hour 50 minutes or whatever. I mean, it's not a waste of your time, I'll say that, but it just watch it, for a laugh or with friends or something. It's worth it for the experience, I'll say that. It's a movie that I'm almost tempted to like buy on Black Friday if it goes down to $6 or something. I would go that far. It's just a movie that's worth at least seeing just to say you saw it and just so you're in the know. But it is not a good film, and it's definitely not worthy of a sequel, or I don't know. It's not a good film, but it wasn't dog shit, That's it. I refuse to give anything else away. Watch it if you want, or if you don't, you can skip it. You're not gonna miss out on too much. But if you wanna, if you know, then check it out. But that's my review of Malignant. As always, thank you guys and gals so much for watching me prattle on about all this. I always appreciate the support, and stay tuned for the next movie review that I do. Goodbye, travelers.